My name is Omar. I am 17 years old. Half of my life was spent learning how to hold the neck of the violin at my father's knee. The other half was swallowed in the silence of the night when I was forced to let that neck slip away. Some children's growth is measured against the lines scratched on a wall. Mine was measured by the thin tick sound of a tuning peg being turned, one after another. That sound was as familiar in our home as the flicker of the oil lamp that burned each evening. And then there was the smell of my father's fingers, resin, sweat, soap, tobacco. In Iraq, whenever there was a wedding in our neighborhood, they called for me. My father would keep the rhythm with his foot while I carried the melody. Neighbors would say, "This boy makes the violin speak." It was true, but sometimes it was the violin that made me speak, translating what I could not put into words. I believed, with a child's pure conviction, that one day I would study at a conservatory, that I would stand on a stage, that music would carry me to another life. Notes were little birds on paper, and I chased each one to warm it against my chest. Then the bombs came. At first they fell far away, and we simply brushed the dust from the window. Then closer, until one day, at noon, the bakery across the street erupted in flames. Flour rose into the air like a glittering cloud. The smell of bread burned into ash. That day, I hid my violin in the safest corner of our house, deep in the chest, beneath my mother's folded blankets, like a secret. War does not enter a home only with bullets. Electricity vanishes, water runs dry, every knock at the door becomes a question mark. One evening, my father turned his chair toward me. "Tomorrow we leave," he said. "Where to?" "Across the sea, somewhere life can still exist." As he spoke, his fingers absent-mindedly caressed the table as if it were the neck of a violin. My mother stroked my little brother's hair. I lifted the violin from the chest and checked the bow. The strings were tense. So was I. Days blurred, from bus to truck, from truck to walking, from walking to waiting. Borders, lines, whispers at midnight. Once, while we sat on the rocks of a mountainside, my father looked at me. "Don't let go of the violin," he said. "I won't," I replied. "The day you can't carry it, you won't be able to carry yourself." It was not heavy, not really, but after that, its weight shifted. On my shoulder, the case felt like a living thing. Even when I slept, I kept it near me. The night we reached the shore, the sky was a heavy blanket. People waiting by the water spoke quickly, then hushed. A boat, black rubber, paint peeling along its edges. We climbed in, feet pressing against each other, searching for room. My little brother buried his face against my chest. "Will you play, brother?" he whispered. "Not here," I said. "We must listen to the waves." They pushed us off. The boat was a breath suspended between two worlds. The motor groaned, the waves slammed, our breathing cut all at once. Stars were as cold as the hopes we carried. A woman clutched a bottle. An old man counted beads with frantic fingers. I placed the violin case between my knees. For a moment, I closed my eyes and pretended to draw the bow, imagining silence as music. The waters rose. A wave spun the boat sideways. Screams, prayers, "Ya Allah!" Feet tangled. My mother held my brother tighter. The motor sputtered. Then a larger wave. The case slipped from my hands. My fingers scrambled, caught nothing. My foot pressed, caught, lost again. It slid like a black shadow into the dark sea. "Let it go," my father shouted. "I can't. It's the violin or you." The words were a blade. Inside me, something tore. I clawed at the water, but the case vanished. When I looked back, my father's eyes carried pity for me and for himself. He wanted to say, "Forgive." But who were we to forgive? The sea or ourselves? Since that night, a hum has lived in my ears, as if one string vibrates endlessly near F, never quite in tune. Days later, we stumbled onto a foreign shore, exhaustion rooted deep in my soles. They loaded us onto buses, then into a damp building. Camp, they called it. Beds, blankets, lines, papers, names, dates of birth, then a tent. The camp carried two kinds of silence, thick and heavy, or thin and sharp. People moved all day as if busy, but truly they were still waiting. Children cried on the first day, stared on the second, fell silent on the third. I chose silence too. Maybe if I didn't speak, the violin would return. Or maybe silence could trick me into believing it had never been lost. At night, my fingers moved in the air, playing invisible etudes. First position, second, third, open string, first finger, second. A silent practice. My father searched for work. My mother organized food lines. I sat and watched until one boy came to me. In his hands, he carried a cardboard violin, painted brown, with two F-holes drawn in charcoal. A stick for a bow. "Play," he said. "It makes no sound." "Neither do you," he answered. "But they're watching." I flushed. I wanted to say, "Don't look." Instead, I took the cardboard, pretended to play. It shook. I shook. Something stirred inside me but made no sound. One day, an older volunteer arrived with a torn case. "We found this," he said. "Who can play?" Nobody spoke. My finger rose. He smiled and handed it over. The violin inside was ancient. Cracked body, warped bridge, rusted strings. It smelled of damp wood. The bow hairs hung in shreds. But when I held it, its weight was familiar. I set it on my knees, closed my eyes, drew a breath. I didn't know if it would even speak. I touched the G string, a groan. The D string, another groan. On the A string, my hand trembled. On the E, my breath. The volunteer crushed his cigarette, nodded. "Go on." So I did. Children gathered. A little girl folded a candy wrapper into a star and dropped it in my lap. "For luck," she said. Day by day, a language grew between us again. I did not speak. The violin did. Then both of us whispered. Every evening, the same people came. Sometimes mothers shelling peas. Sometimes men waiting in line. Sometimes children, beating rhythm with bare feet in the mud. One evening, my lips curved upward without my permission. A smile, like a string finally finding its pitch. My father sat beside me. "It has a voice," he said. "It does," I replied, but I was waiting for another voice. "Maybe this is the one you were meant to hear," he said. "Mine or the violin's?" "Both," he said. In the small prayer tent, a woman approached me. She wore a long black coat, a pale blue scarf. "That melody," she said. "It sounds like the one played in my city." "It sounded like the one in mine too," I said. We were quiet. Then she whispered, "My son, the sea kept him." She stopped. I began, "My violin," but stopped too. We shared a silence filled with two losses, two unfinished sentences. Once, I taught the children a simple rhythm. They clapped their thighs, and I played quick notes over it. A boy missed the beat. The mistake was beautiful. I let it stand. Some errors lead to the right road. Months later, a cultural center near the camp held an event. They called it Sounds and Colors. Volunteers hung drawings, suns, houses, flags, boats. I sat in a corner with the cracked violin. Nobody introduced me, but children gathered. "Omar, play," they begged. I chose a wedding tune my father had loved, then a lullaby my mother hummed while cooking. The first note escaped like a long-held breath. The bow scratched, the body cracked, but the sound was alive. For a moment, the night on the sea came back. The wave, the slipping case, my father's shout, "The violin or you?" But now it was part of the song, not my prison. Later, a music teacher named Anna came to the camp. She listened, watched my bow. "Will you teach?" she asked. "To who? The children? Me?" "Yes, no money, but a class." I did not teach violin. There were none. I taught listening, how to hear one sound, Wait for the second. Welcome the third. Hands on knees for drums. Fingers as bows. Breath as flutes. Laughter as melodies. If there is no music, you make it, I told them. Together, it is stronger. Time passed. My father worked in a workshop, his hands smelling of wood. My mother cooked in the communal kitchen. My brother laughed in the yard. I sat at the edge of the camp, violin on my lap, looking at the horizon. The violin was no longer the memory of what I lost, but the language of what remained. One evening, a child brought me a wet notebook found by the shore. The cover half blurred, inside a drawing of a sun, a house, 3 stick figures. On another page, a badly drawn violin. The boy said, "Maybe it belonged to someone who played with you, or maybe it's ours now." I closed it and whispered, "It belongs to both of us." Weeks later, Anna arranged for us to play at a small hall. Children stood in a half circle, holding spoons, cans, bottles. On the poster it read, "The Silent Violin and the Children's Rhythm." The lights were warm yellow. I placed the violin on my knee. "Are you ready?" I asked. "Yes," they said. "I will count. You will listen. Then we will play together. 1, 2, 3. They clapped. I played. The violin cracked but carried the tune. A child fell off rhythm. Another found him. Someone in the audience sniffed. A woman lowered her head, pulled out a tissue. A man tapped his knee without noticing. When we finished, silence lingered. Then applause. Not for greatness, but for something small finding its place. After the concert, a man approached with a violin case. "I have a workshop," he said. "I can fix that crack." "Let it stay," I said. "Only make sure it doesn't split." He nodded. "Cracks give a voice character." "And sometimes people too," I said. A few days later, a little girl gave me a folded paper star. "For luck," she said. I put it in the violin case. That night, I remembered the moment on the sea when the real case slipped from my hands. This time, instead of panic, I felt gratitude. The sea had taken the wood, but left the sound. Now, when I play at night, 2 times walk through my fingers. The old streets, weddings, my father's foot keeping rhythm. And here, the wind rattling tin roofs, the laughter of children. Both live through me. My father sometimes closes his eyes while I play. "Isn't it heavy anymore?" I ask. "What?" "The violin's place." "You carry it now," he says. "Not it." I no longer search for neat endings. Some mothers are found, some are not. Some names appear on lists, others dissolve like mist. The sea is not cruel by choice. It keeps what we give it, without a promise to return. I have learned to live with drawers that never close, and prayers that never finish. Years pass. The girl who gave me the paper star still comes to listen. Her eyes softer now. My brother studies. I teach children rhythms, songs, mistakes that become paths. On Sundays, we rehearse. I tell them at the start, wait until you hear the sound. Waiting is no longer desperate. While we wait, we hear each other. At last, I understood. That night the sea took my violin, but it left the music. Sometimes you lose one thing to keep another more tightly. Some notes only find meaning through a cracked body. Some melodies only complete themselves in a child's applause. If one day you sit in the back of a hall and hear a cracked violin begin with an old E string, and you see someone holding a paper star inside the case, maybe it is me, maybe another Omar, or maybe it is simply the music the sea left behind.